This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and it's my goal here on the podcast to introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Our title sponsor for this episode is Bringing Local Back. Remember when your community could turn to a local TV station or newspaper for the latest updates and affordable ads? Those days may be fading, but the need for local connection remains. That's why we created Bringing Local Back, a game-changing platform that restores local visibility and advertising power to your community. It's more than just tech. It's about driving engagement and creating new revenue for your chamber. Ready to see the future? Visit bringinglocalback.com to schedule your demo today. This is the future of local commerce. Our guest for this episode is Thomas Sullivan. Thomas is the Vice President of Small Business Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Working with the U.S. Chamber's nationwide network, Tom harnesses the views of small businesses and translates that grassroots power into federal policies that bolster free enterprise and reward entrepreneurships. He also runs a U.S. Chamber Small Business Council, engaging those members on a regular basis to increase small business input and involvement in chamber initiatives. Tom's advocacy career spans from creating a legal center at the National Federation of Independent Business to general counsel at the Bipartisan Policy Center to building the Innovative Lending Platform Association. Tom received unanimous Senate approval to serve as SBA's chief counsel for advocacy at the George W. Bush administration and remains active in the Bush-Cheney Alumni Network. Tom and his wife live in Virginia and are blessed with 2 teenage sons. Tom serves on the board for the Global Entrepreneurship Network and is a graduate of the Chamber's 4-year Iowan credential program. Now, Tom, I'm excited to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I'd love to give you an opportunity to say hello to all the Chamber champions who are out there listening and to share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you a little better.
Well, thank you, Brandon. Hello, all the Chamber Chat listeners. It's great to be with you today. Let's see, something interesting about me. Well, Brandon, when you and I were chatting about the day that this podcast will air, April 1, not only is it April Fool's Day, but it is a day that is forever etched in my memory and pain in my lower back because I have significant structure in my lower back where several of my vertebrae are fused together, and that was done on April 1st, a long time ago. So I'll never forget that day. It is certainly something interesting.
Yeah, and hopefully it's improved your life since then. So
it has. It definitely has. I can use both legs regularly. So yes, it worked.
That is a good improvement for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, usually I have the guests tell a little bit about their chamber, size, staff, budget, scope of work. Being at the U.S. Chamber, why don't you instead tell us a little bit more about your role with the U.S. Chamber to kind of set the stage for our discussion?
Well, Brandon, thank you. So first of all, I am a little bit biased, but I do have the best job at the United States Chamber of Commerce here in Washington, D.C. The reason it's the best job is I get to spend every day talking with folks who are probably listening to this podcast, local state chamber leaders, as well as their small business members. Now, I get the added benefit of taking what I learned from all of those wonderful folks and advocate before Congress and the White House. But I truly think it is the best job, mostly because I get to talk with small business owners every day.
Absolutely. I can totally understand why you would say it's the best job in the world. I love working with chambers for that very reason. They're the ones that are dealing with people that are on the front lines with, putting bread on the table, so to speak, for families across this country. Well, for our topic of conversation today, we're going to spend the majority of our focus on small business on the local and the national scale, and bringing in some of your expertise, some of the things that you've seen, and some things that you may see on the horizon as well with regard to small business. And we'll dive into this as soon as they get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of At My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started At My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
At My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped the Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Chamber leaders, I know each of you works daily to boost your local economy and take your Chamber of Commerce to the next level. But let's face it, it takes funding, and lots of it. You need to know Resource Development Group. For 3 decades, they have been the premier economic development fundraising consulting firm dedicated to helping chambers of commerce and economic development organizations like yours thrive across the United States. Their expert team specializes in crafting customized fundraising strategies that drive tangible results so you'll be able to fully implement your community advancement and economic development strategies. Imagine having a partner who strives to understand your community's unique needs, brings national best practices to bear, and has the proven experience to secure millions of dollars in funding. Resource Development Group has successfully guided countless chambers of commerce in creating vibrant, sustainable economies. With their comprehensive suite of services, from campaign planning and execution to investor engagement management to best practice studies, RDG takes the guesswork out of fundraising. You'll receive personalized support and innovative solutions that make a real impact. Don't just take my word for it. Chambers of Commerce and EDO executives nationwide have praised RDG for their dedication, professionalism, and impressive track record of raising over $2 billion for their clients. Ready to see what Resource Development Group can do for your chamber? Visit them at rdgfundraising.com to learn more. Elevate your community, strengthen your chamber, and unlock new possibilities with Resource Development Group by your side. They build organizations that build communities. All right, Tom, we are back. So as we turn our focus today on small business on the local and the national scale, I know your focus is on that all the time. But what are some of the things that you see as you interact with chambers across the country, as you pay attention to the needs of small businesses? What are those things that are top of mind right now, things that to be paying attention about? To be fair, we are recording this in December of 2024. So by the time this comes out in April 2025, we may see a little bit of a different climate. But at this point, how do you see things, and what are those things that are top of mind?
Well, thank you, Brandon. And thank you also for letting the listeners know that here in December, while we're awaiting President-elect Trump to take office, there is some uncertainty. And I'm sure that by April, all that uncertainty will have gone away, smooth sailing. But seriously, there are some things that will certainly still be front and center on the radar as your listeners are listening right now. Probably the thing that has been on every small business owner's radar for close to 3 years has been inflation. This has been the strongest headwind for small business growth for 3 years. And there certainly have been proposals to reduce inflation. And whatever those proposals are, small businesses are going to be the largest cheerleading section, because it has been a wet blanket on growth for small businesses that have been anxious for that growth to take off for some time. So solutions to inflation are front and center for every small business in the country. And most of my job is trying to look at small business policy through the lenses of growth. And that means through the lenses of those policy solutions designed to reduce inflation.
And that is such a hot topic for sure. And even as this is released in April of 2025, inflation is not one of those things that you can just turn a dial and it's fixed, right? It's that small steering of that ship that makes those changes. And some of this gets done on the advocacy front. Some of it is, when it comes to importing and exporting and where these goods are coming from. And there's a lot that plays into the cost of goods, right? What we look at with inflation. But
There sure is.
On the local level, for the local chambers listening, are there things that they can do to, whether it's to help with inflation or to put minds at ease of their members and help them to navigate their way through the uncertainty with inflation?
Well, let's first hit on your question about how do they help. And I just want every listener to know how important it is to show up. And I don't mean just show up as switching on the Zoom camera or picking up the phone. I mean coming to Washington, D.C. and having your voices heard. I mean, this is something I do every day. And, it's nice when lawmakers are sick of seeing my face. But every time a small business owner comes from the district that has elected this member of Congress, every time they go into the office, that's what makes a difference. I mean, the best lobbyist I have ever met, and I'm saying that with full acknowledgement that my wife is a lobbyist. So the best lobbyist I have ever met is Yassine Taru from Knoxville, Tennessee. He owns a falafel shop. And he comes to Washington, D.C., and, he gets the selfie pictures with members of Congress and all that stuff. But then when the member of Congress sits down and the staff around him take out their notepads and pencils, he says, look, he starts locally. He says, hey, when are you going to, you said you were going to have some federal money to rebuild that bridge. Like, how's that going? Where's the progress? Because I haven't seen the construction trucks pulling up yet. And the member of Congress looks at the staff member and says, okay, yeah, we got to follow up with that. And then Yassine generally then goes on to tax policy. It says, look, some of these tax provisions really have to be made permanent because it helps me and it helps millions of other small businesses around. The meeting ends. Yassine goes home to his beautiful family. And then it's up to me and my colleagues at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, along with the colleagues of chambers all over the United States, to make sure that there's follow-up capitalizing on that local small business owners advocacy. And I could tell you, Brandon, it makes a huge, huge difference. Every Yassine Taru who shows up in a member of Congress's office is worth 20 times when I show up.
Yeah.
So the magnifying impact really, really does make a difference. And now I know that small business owners, they got to make enough profit at the end of the day so that the lights can get turned on the following day. And they've got to make enough money so that food does get on the table of their employees. So it's hard just to pick up and go to Washington, D.C. But I can assure every small business owner it makes a difference. And what makes an extra difference is when they talk with their local chamber first, make sure they get their message down so that they know what the ask is that will help them as a small business and will help the entire community of small businesses that honestly they're representing when they make that trip to Washington, D.C.
Yeah. And I see, all the time these chambers that do their Washington, D.C. fly-in and, maybe bring some of their people from their board who are these business owners and be able to present their voices and concerns and what their needs are. And I know not every chamber has the ability to do that, but there is strength in numbers. So the more that show up and can plead that case and hopefully be in line with each other too. So you don't have one chamber contradicting what another's saying, right?
Well, we do more to just have folks come and speak their mind than we do worrying about whether or not everyone is on the same page. If one small business owner has a different view of how their business can grow and the federal incentives to make that happen, it's not going to be so different from another. Growth is primarily the main talking point, and small business owners know what it means to grow. They know what it means to grow as an economy that actually bolsters the America as a superpower instead of making it weaker by adding deficit. So we don't worry that much about exact messaging. We worry mostly to make sure that our representatives are speaking through the lenses of growth to their policymakers. And I should also at least acknowledge, you don't have to come to Washington, D.C. Every member of Congress has local district offices. And when when they come back home to the voters who elected them, they want to visit with small businesses. Not only is it a great photo op, but it is also great from a Chamber of Commerce's perspective that small business owner gets the undivided attention of the elected leader through the entire visit.
Yeah, that's a good point. So a couple times now you've mentioned looking at things through the lens of growth or presenting things from that perspective. And as I think of these, a lot of the lawmakers, they've been in politics their adult life, right? A lot of them have not run and operated a business themselves. So is there any maybe best practices on how to communicate through that lens of growth that can be relatable to those that they need to relate it to?
Well, what a great question. The answer is yes. There is some advice. So first of all, the advice is be who you are. Don't try to be a lobbyist from Washington, D.C. Don't try to be like the most caught up on the latest scandal of the hour. Just be who you are and tell your story and practice your story, either with your loved ones or your local chamber leader, and have them ask questions the way that a member of Congress would. I love telling a very recent story that happened. We have been already aggressively meeting with Congress to promote the pro-growth aspects of tax policy that are set to expire at the end of 2025. Our campaign is designed to make those provisions permanent so that at the end of 2025, all of a sudden, small business owners don't wake up with an enormous tax bill that they didn't expect. And we brought in a local small business from Buckeye, Arizona, who sells hay, alfalfa, if you want to be more specific. And he was wonderful. He was meeting with Dave Schweikert, who is a member of Congress who serves on the tax writing committee. And Dick Cardew, who's the owner of Cardew Hay Company, he said, all this whole discussion of taxes is just so complicated. And this is awkward for me as a small business owner. I don't really know what to say. All I know is for the past 5 years, I have been saving a little bit every year in order to buy this piece of machinery that bales hay and puts the hay on my truck in a way that I don't have to because I'm getting older and I can't do it anymore. And the congressional staffer looked at Dick and said, "Oh my gosh, that's the example we've been looking for."
Yes.
And he said, "Where are you going to buy this equipment?" He said, "Oh, well, my friend down the street sells this particular piece of equipment. We're going to get it there." And so all of a sudden, Dick is just telling his story and what he's been doing, which is saving some dollars at the end of every year, which is made possible through some tax deductions that are set to expire. Not only is he saving that to spend it, he's spending it for his business to grow. And he's also spending it at a neighboring business that will allow them to grow. And so the reason I tell you that story is sometimes we make it too complicated. And it's as simple as telling your story that connects your local experience with a national policy that is designed to promote growth. And that's what Dick did. And I'll continue telling that story to anyone who will listen.
What a great example. And, sometimes government can get in the way of that growth, and we want to be able to take down some of those barriers and eliminate some of those things. And for him to say, I'm trying to save a little bit each year to make his job easier, but be more productive, to help his business, help others. And then as you're explaining this, the whole thought of inflation creeps back in here too. I mean, that ties right back into it when he's saving a little bit each year, but that little bit is less and less each year because of that. So it all plays into it. So
it does.
Wonderful example. Is there anything that local chambers can do to help with their members, maybe to put their minds at ease, or to help them carry on, through a lens of growth that will allow them to maybe not focus on the negative effects so much of inflation, but continue to look at opportunities to grow and control what you can control, and maybe encourage others to help you in the other areas?
There certainly are ways that local chambers can learn from each other, perhaps learn from you and me and others. One of them is Institute, the Institute of Organization Management, otherwise known as the Institute or IOM. I'm a Winter Institute graduate down in Tucson, Arizona. The networks and learnings that all Institute graduates benefit from carry on for the rest of their professional lives. And when you're struggling with something, all of a sudden you have this immediate network of other chamber professionals who hopefully are listening to this podcast. And that does provide comfort. It does provide certainty, and it does provide paths forward. The other thing to do is to recognize that the relationship with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is intended to be a two-way value proposition. And the access that our 1,600 local, state, and regional chambers of commerce have, who pay a small amount in order to be part of that network, their value is gained from getting the regular insider information about what's going on. And then we encourage those local chamber executives to share it with their membership, so that connectivity, which really chambers are famous for, because that's what we basically do at our core, is we connect people. We're the community connectors. And the more that we can lean into that connectiveness, whether it's through IOM Institute or whether it's from being part of what we call the Federation. Sounds like a Star Wars term, but really it's just a term that is assigned to this incredible network of both trade associations and local, state, and regional chambers of commerce. So just leaning into that connectivity, I think, diminishes some of the fear, some of the uncertainty, and does create some really long-lasting bonds.
I think that's great advice. And anybody who I know who's been through the IOM program would echo that. And in fact, it's often a action item that guests will share with others, is to build that professional network and to have those peers that you can lean upon, and the U.S. Chamber even to lean upon. Well, what other things come to mind when you go about your work with focusing on small businesses and that lens for growth? What other things are top of mind for you at the moment?
Well, one of the things that is constantly top of mind are the day-to-day challenges of small business owners. I mean, I'm lucky to deal with national policy issues. So tax, healthcare, regulatory policy, those types of things are within my remit. But, what about choosing a payroll provider?
Right.
What about finding an inventory management system? All of these things that are worries, concerns, and quite frankly, opportunities at a small business level. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce traditionally never really addressed those daily needs until COVID. When COVID hit, this desperate need for information was absorbed by our then new CEO, who was a small business owner herself, Suzanne Clark. And she heard this thirst. She felt this thirst for practical information. And we responded by launching a small business digital platform. It's called CO. That digital platform is designed to answer these questions that small business owners have that are daily challenges. And the greatest thing about is that the answers come from other small business owners. So how do you choose a payroll provider? Well, there are stories on this small business digital platform called that interview a small business owner, and that small business owner tells how she chose a payroll provider or manages a supply chain, or how they could figure out how the heck to hire a really good employee. Like these things that keep small business owners up at night are answered by their peers through this digital platform that is available for anyone. And our local and state chambers of commerce are certainly taking advantage of it by embedding the platform into their communications with their members. And it is open to anyone who has a good internet connection. And I'm just really happy that now that COVID is in our rearview mirror, our commitment to answer daily questions and challenges small businesses face continues to be a priority. I think that has to do in a large part because our CEO is Suzanne Clark, is a former small business owner, but it also is an example of how we saw something, we built it into our new muscle memory, and we're committed to continue it long term.
Yeah, that's a great example and great resource. So if the chamber's listening and have not been utilizing I'd encourage them to check it out and see where it makes sense to implement it with your members and like Tom said, embed it into your communications, because it sounds like a wonderful resource. Well, Tom, as we start to wrap things up here, I wanted to ask for the chambers listening who may be wanting to take their chamber up to the next level. What kind of tips or action item might you share with them to try to accomplish that goal?
Well, I'll go back to my friends at IOM and Institute and the Federation. There is a Chamber of Commerce accreditation process. And those 5-star chambers around the United States are the best of the best. And that means that process isn't easy. But I've never heard a 5-star chamber saying, well, that was a heck of a waste of time. I mean, the other way around, we hear like, I had no time for it and it was hard. But now that we got our accreditation, it was worth it. And I think the chambers that are looking to go to the next level should look very seriously at the chamber's accreditation program and see if they can jump in with both feet.
And even if they're not awarded with a 5-star accreditation, it's a good refining process to go through the exercise and see where you stack up and where you can find areas to improve and be more efficient as an organization. Yeah.
Well said.
Well, Tom, as we look to the future of chambers of commerce, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
So, Brandon, in this digital world we live in, I think there's an even greater need and appreciation for the convening power of chambers. Now we have the luxury now of convening in a multitude of ways, but it's still convening.
Yeah.
And whatever flavor that takes, I do think that the power of networks that are made possible through the convening are actually at an all-time high. I say that also with the realization that for the past 5 years, we've had record-breaking new business starts. And that means there are all these new small businesses looking for connectivity, looking for network opportunities virtually and in person. And chambers of commerce are uniquely situated to capitalize on it.
I love that. And the idea of the power of the networks. I've heard a quote before, and I can't attribute who I heard it from, but it talked about digging your well before you're thirsty. You make those contacts, you have that network built, and then when there's a need there, you're not trying to develop those relationships right then in that moment because you already have them. You can send out that message and say, "Hey, I need help with this," and those contacts who can help you. So great piece of advice and way to look forward with the future of chambers. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any contact information for listeners who may want to reach out and connect with you and maybe learn some more about what you have to offer in terms of small business support. Where would you point them? What would be the best way to connect?
The best way is through LinkedIn. I'm under Thomas Sullivan, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. You'll find my LinkedIn profile. I tend to lean into LinkedIn a little bit more than some other social media platforms. I find the dialogue a little bit more respectful on LinkedIn than some other social media platforms. But if those other social media platforms are your thing, my handle is Small Biz Patriot, and that's probably the easiest way to get me.
All right, we will make sure to get that in our show notes for this episode as well to make it easy to find you and connect with you on LinkedIn. But Tom, this has been great having you on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking some time to be with us today and to share some of these insights and like you said, the lens for growth. I love that perspective. And that's really the way every chamber should be looking at small businesses in their community, is through that lens for growth. What can they do to help remove obstacles? What can they do to help create that network to allow for that growth? And this has been a valuable conversation. So I appreciate you.
Well, Brandon, right back at you. I appreciate you. And I certainly appreciate all of the chamber executives who are listening, and in particular, because of the great work that they do for their small business members.
If you are a chamber professional, please subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. When you subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast, new episodes will show up in your podcast app each week as they are released. If you're finding value in this podcast, please leave us a rating and a review in iTunes. But most importantly, please share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues that are in the industry.